The MonsterVerse is really starting to ramp things up, but don't you dare sleep on Godzilla Minus Zero. It'd be real easy to let the upcoming sequel to Godzilla Minus One slip to an afterthought right now with all the other stuff going on in our monster world. In the midst of all the excitement, now is the great time to bring up some theories on who the big bad villain monster may be in this highly anticipated sequel. So if you want to hear why a classic favorite may end up throwing heads with the G-Man in Minus Zero, stomp the subscribe button and make sure to stick around. If you didn't catch that, the devil with 3 heads himself, King Ghidorah, has moved into the front-runner position for potential big threat status in Godzilla Minus Zero. And in this video, I'll explain why so many people are starting to roll with this theory. There's actually some solid evidence here, so let's not waste any more time, let's get to it. The first reason why King Ghidorah has a real good chance at showing up is, well, the fact Takashi Yamazaki, the director and creator of the Godzilla Minus universe, has already worked with the monster in the past. You may have forgotten about the Godzilla the Ride experience some years ago now, made as a sort of precursor to Godzilla Minus One in this new Toho takeover. In that ride, Godzilla took on Ghidorah and fought to the death in classic fashion. Yamazaki didn't half-ass this either just because it was a 3-minute ride. This entire sequence is epic and masterfully crafted to be both great for a ride experience and just an overall badass Godzilla cinematic. The battle between Godzilla and Ghidorah in the ride may have been brief, but it leaves an impact after you watch it, a modern take on a classic battle, and in the end, we get a fatality that would make any Mortal Kombat fan very happy. Overall, Yamazaki nailed the elements that come with Ghidorah, so just imagine what he could do now many years later and with an entire production team and a buttload of money behind him. Since he's already gotten familiar with how Ghidorah would work both in a sense of storytelling and the creative process of bringing it to life in CGI, that's already a solid reason for why Ghidorah would make total sense for Godzilla Minus Zero. Speaking of that title, Minus Zero, that's actually the exact next reason why King Ghidorah could be included. Godzilla's arch-nemesis has earned a handful of nicknames over the years. The one that's important now is Monster Zero. Monster Zero, Minus Zero, is the light bulb starting to turn on in your mind. Seriously though, when the word Zero is in the title and one of the most famous kaiju ever created has a nickname called Monster Zero, we can't just ignore that. And the clues don't stop there. Also within the logo for Minus Zero, there could be evidence of Ghidorah. If you flip that stylized G and use a bit of imagination, you might be able to make out the outline of one of Ghidorah's heads. But I'll be honest, this one is even hard for me to see.
I don't see it!
Would you like to have another reason why Ghidorah might show up? When you think of Godzilla, what color do you usually associate him with first? Blue, right? Now what about King Ghidorah? Gold. The color gold has always played a massive role in Ghidorah's design. If there was ever a non-gold Ghidorah, well, I don't think it would be Ghidorah at all. So naturally, the gold-hued clouds and the skybox here in the title image makes you think that this could be a hint at Monster Zero. Even the MonsterVerse used similar techniques for Ghidorah, and we know Takashi is a huge fan of the MonsterVerse movies and has admitted to using them for influence in his work, so what do you think about these gold clouds? An argument could be that the gold represents Mothra, but I just don't see how Mothra fits into this version of a Godzilla universe. Now, while we are on the topic of these clouds, some have even admitted that they can see Ghidorah within this same image. And you may remember how I mentioned that I think this blue glow in the image is Godzilla, or at least represents him. So I do think there are hidden messages in this image, and some think you can see what looks like Ghidorah's 3 heads in the center, where 3 clouds reach out, almost looking like the 3-headed monster is leaning over Godzilla. Once again, I don't see it.
I don't see it!
It could be these clouds here, but I'm unsure. Let me know in the comments if you think you got a better look at this. Some of these reasons can be described as a bit of a stretch, but you can't ignore the gold color themes, the word zero in the title, and Takashi's past experience with King Ghidorah. But all of this just creates another question. Is Ghidorah being overused? There's no denying that this is one of the most iconic Godzilla monsters ever created, but that also means it's one of the most overused. And would getting another take on Ghidorah actually be worth getting excited for? Well, sure, if it's done justice. King of the Monsters may be the weakest of the MonsterVerse movies in the box office, but that doesn't fall on Ghidorah's shoulders, I don't think. So you can't go and say people won't show up to see Godzilla take on Ghidorah on that alone. Once again though, is Ghidorah overused? Maybe, but just like rival teams facing off in sports, those matchups are always the most anticipated, regardless of the fact that they compete against each other so often. So with that being said, how could Ghidorah work in Takashi's Minus universe? Earlier I mentioned how I don't think Mothra could work in the Minus verse. She just seems too fantasy for this more grounded story, so how could this be avoided with Ghidorah? I could see religion playing more of a role here, perhaps more on the ancient side of things. Dragons are a huge cultural aspect all over the planet, so they could use that as a base foundation for Ghidorah's story, some form of released deity. And I mean, if there's a dinosaur from hell hanging out around islands in this universe, then I don't see why there can't be some hidden dragons around here somewhere. We also can't forget that the 1950s, roughly around the time of the Minus verse, the aliens were a huge topic. So maybe they could keep Ghidorah's more alien roots and give us some of that 50s alien invasion-like vibes with the monster. Both of these origins sound cool, I think, and could work in the Minus verse and still pay respect to the origins of the character in the past. Now I'll hand this video off to you guys and gals. Let me know if you think this theory has some weight to it, or if it's just one big pile of shit.
Hello again, residents, and welcome back to another Monster Mail. Or Mailville? Or Danger Mail? I don't know, guys, we don't really have a name for it yet. If you have a better one, let us know in the comments. This is Alistair, and we're going through some of your answers to the question, is Ghidorah in this poster? And does the title Minus Zero have anything to do with Monster Zero? If you want to get involved in videos like this, be sure to follow us on Twitter at DangervilleTeam, and look out for questions like this. The overwhelming consensus to the question is no. Nope. Nah. No. Please, God. No. God, I hope not. Please, no. Not. Maybe? Alright, I get it. But the thing is with these kinds of reveals is don't underestimate the amount of time they put into every tiny detail. There may be some hints all of us have missed. Asher Grisanti says they don't want Ghidorah in the film and they would prefer to see a different kaiju. Which, honestly, I completely agree with. We get Ghidorah so often, so I'd like to see some underutilized kaiju return, like my spiky boy Anguirus. Sky says, based on the Ghidorah the Rides design, he hopes they will update him. Which, yeah, the design wasn't terrible, but he was just so skinny, they made him look more like a kaiju Starscream than kaiju Megatron. Rexzilla T says, I hope not, and they'd prefer Ghidorah to be the endgame kaiju, which again, yeah, I personally agree with, but who knows if the Minus series will go on for that long. Minus Zero could be the endgame. Evolved Goji says, the poster is yellow, Monster Zero is also yellow. Very good, Evolved Goji, thank you for that. Honestly, I agree with pretty much everything being said here, but let's not rule out the very obvious indication that this poster is hinting at more than just Godzilla. Whether it's the blinding yellow light, the dark smog-like clouds, or even the logo, there's a lot of unanswered questions that I can't wait to see explored. Anyway, this has been Alistair, now back to Jacob.
If you had a good time hanging out with me, everyone, like the video and share it around. Thanks for sticking with me till the end. You're awesome, and I'll see you in the next one. Jacob out.